Morning. You missed World? Well, there's it's kind of required reading for today's episode. It's not going to be much of a recap as much as a filling in, as much as I'm assuming you've already watched it. So we're going to be talking about it like you understand what's going on here. Hello, Cactus. Thank you for the raid. Cactus and friends. Cactus and the Super Chumps. Right, hello, Keon. Pick Pig, Epic Pikachu. Innate T, the Great T. Himmel. The Baldness World Championships? I would not do good in the Baldness World Championships. I'm not even bald to begin with. So that would not go over well if I were to compete in that. Nor would I be interested in recapping that. I don't think anybody would. Sindao's not bald either. I think Sindao has grown out his hair recently. Or did at one point. The difference is my wife buzzes my hair, whereas I believe Sindao actually shaves the head, which I'm not into that. I'm more for the douche police officer look, I guess. The Whip Rays say hello? All of them? No, I'm not growing it back out. No. It's not gonna look good. It doesn't look good. I got the widow. I would look like I was in my 40s if I grew my hair out. It's not a good look. No. I would look like your history professor. The least sexiest professor at your university. At least one of the Whip Rays. Okay, well, I'm willing to assume that you don't speak for the entirety of the Whip Rays. So I'm sure there's at least one person on the Whip Rays that despises me. It's not Sofa King, but I'm sure somebody. Oh, Sophic said? Okay. Well, there. Fair enough. A Pop Gun appreciation channel? No, you don't. There's a lie. That's like me saying I have a Whip Race appreciation channel in my server. Which maybe I do. likely don't, but maybe I do. I've said the Whip Rays logo reminds me of Arby's. So I was thinking about the Whip Rays the last weekend. I didn't pay attention to LSL as going on, but I did see the Whip Rays tweet out how they won their group and they're excited they were 3-0 in their group. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do it yet. You still got to finish out the tournament. Finish out before you post how good you'd been doing in the group stage. When was the last time I had an Arby's? I like their Reuben sandwich. With one like the rye bread or whatever, like the swirly bread, whatever. Like I have that. And they got non-curly fries. They got like actual human consumable fries. Crinkle cut. But it's been a long time. I've kind of migrated away from fast food in general in the past couple of months. And I feel great. I feel really good, honestly. Physically, I feel really good. Had a salad today. Wife made poke bowls. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokeballs, gotta eat 'em all. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are still bummed out that Nintendo didn't make an announcement at the World Championships, having your eyeballs begin to recover after staring directly into the sun last week, losing in a solo match due to lag being so bad that basic win conditions only favor one team. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. If you didn't see Falco's clip from last week, I'm going to be putting it into chat right now. This is a case study that we've been doing. So when I saw this, I laughed my ass off. Just at how absurd it was that something like this could happen. But then I was thinking, what would we do if this happened in an actual tournament? So I took this to the Low Ink staff channel. And I just pinged Glowing Staff. I was like, how would you guys react if somebody brought something like this to help desk? Now, we have a rule that says no lag rules. None. Nada. We don't deal with lag in Lowing for a wide variety of reasons. And one of the most important ones, especially during Swiss stage, is we can't slow down all 6 gazillion matches going on just to look at one little clip of you getting shot behind a wall. Sucks to suck, sweetheart. I don't know what to tell you. Change hosts and try the next one. We don't have time to fix this broken game that you have elected to play competitively. But we do have a rule at the bottom of every single tournament that says we have the right to make stuff up as we go along. And if I saw something like this isn't lag. This is so broken of a lobby that something needs to be done about this. Well, actually, it is lag. It's just extremely bad. So the debate is, like, how would you rule? Would you force a replay in this situation? Would you give the win to Falco's team? Because clearly, by the normal definition of how the game is supposed to work, the game should have ended when the win in Falco's favor. Do you just say, nope, no lag, nonstop, no matter what? We're not even dealing with it. In my opinion, and don't take this for, well, if this happens at Low Ink, Popgun's going to rule this way. No, I might not even be operating help desk at that day. In my opinion, if this were to happen in a tournament, I would say the DC happened on Falco's team. Therefore, we're going to put the blame on Falco's team for that, and the result is going to stand. You're taking that L, move on to the next game. Now, fair, foul. That's up for you guys to decide. There's no right or wrong answer in that one. That is just the logical conclusion I'm coming up with as quickly as possible to, hey, here's a logical answer to this thing you're putting in the help desk, and go play your next games because I want to go and end this tournament faster than you do. I promise you. Speaking of tournaments, weapon bans have been a hot topic over the course of the last month. Proving Grounds became the first standard-ish tournament, I guess, to announce that we are doing bans. Their Proving Grounds was announced for Sunday, April the 28th. We were going to do the 27th, but then we realized there is a In the Zone that day. So we're not going to compete with Sindao. Instead, we're going to move it to Sunday. There's going to be weapon bans for this tournament. We're not going to allow the blue pencil. It limits you to only one Zuka in your team comp, and you can't use Kraken for Clan Blitz only. That's not to say that is the definitive. Every tournament needs to do this rule set going forward, and there's plenty of debate of should you do the one Zuka or should you just ban V-Shot altogether. Who knows? But it's already, us just announcing we're going to do this has already been met with the, but Pop, good, why wouldn't you do this band instead of that band? It's like, okay, yes, like, thank you. That started already. We haven't even played a tournament yet, and we're already starting with the questioning of the rules. So be it. That's just how it's going to be. The Splatoon TO Guild did put out a survey, though, a week and a half ago, last week, something like that. And I believe the results of that are going to be published at some point in the near future. If it's out before the Friday episode of the Popcast where we do a preview of Low Ink, we'll spend a segment looking over that because as other members of the guild have pointed out, there are some issues with how that survey was kind of constructed, and it wasn't really something I'm not the one who constructed the survey, but that wasn't really something I considered either until other people were pointing it out. So there's like things to consider with that, but still the results of that have come out. I will tell you there's been 1,100 responses to that survey, so quite a few people have entered their opinions into what they think should be going on as far as weapon bans and the state of the competitive meta is concerned. But regardless of surveys and whatnot, at some point, you gotta just do the damn thing and start banning it and see what works and what doesn't. If the results of the survey come back and it's like, oh yeah, people are overwhelmingly in favor of weapon bans. Okay, well, TOs, are you going to do something or not? So we're going to do something and see what happens. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then, well, I'll retire and you'll never hear from me again. News of tournaments that may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. It is Low Ink Week. Again, I cannot believe that. We ran Low Ink literally 2 weeks ago-ish. So we're already doing another one. March, we had to do it at the very end of March, and now we're doing it right back in the middle of April. So it's been a very slow downtime, but we're already back at it again. That means Friday registration is going to close for Low Ink at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There will be a Low Ink preview episode of the Popcast coming out on Friday. We're going to stick to that 2 p.m. EDT time slot. It's the perfect time right before we get to go pick up PJ from daycare. And it's good for the EU folks who like to watch me live without having to stay up until the crack of dawn to do so. So it's a win-win for everyone. No Easter this Low Ink. No time zone change. It is a godless Low Ink, like the vast majority of them are, but somehow we will survive in advance. Today, we are going to be recapping the Nintendo World Championships that you likely saw over the course of the last weekend, maybe live, maybe caught a VOD of it a little bit later. We're going to be doing a deep dive. That's going to be the main thing we're going to be talking about today. My apologies to LSL. Didn't really watch it. Didn't have time to. We'll still talk about it, though, in the upcoming segment. But the main focus of the day is going to be the Nintendo World Championships. So all that and more. But first, is this working? There we go. Yes. Finally. Okay. It's time for the weekly recap. Paddling pool number 262 took place last Wednesday. It was won by AEA, the Association Esports Angels, with the D in front of the Angel, but I'm assuming the D is silent. Chipotle took second place, and Road to +1 playing weeklies is the team that took home bronze. Look, if you want to get the +1 doing nothing but weeklies, you got to do better than third place in paddling pool, just saying. 34 teams played in this prominent EU weekly that takes place every single Wednesday from now until the end of all creation. SOS number 144 took place last Wednesday night, won by Oh Boy minus Jelly plus Straight. Oh no, Oh Boy is my way of saying, oh boy, the names of these teams are going to be pretty bad. It's Jelly plus Straight equals flopped with a barf emoji at the end of that. Second place was Denny's Regulars, and third place goes to, I'm assuming it's just that hug emote. This is routinely why I hate doing the weekly recap, but the good news about this being on the Sindao website is that you can look at all the players' names directly under the team instead of having to click on things and do too much research into finding in that one. But I don't care enough. When the names are this bad, then I don't really care enough to look into them much further either. Hammerhead was won by Omega equal Biggie. Mako bracket won by There Is No Cooler in Ba Sing Se. And the Lantern bracket was won by Druid of the Jungle. Does any of those words mean anything to anybody? Little Squid League Invitational number 4 took place on Saturday. It was won by Insecure Connection. Wave Illusions took second place, and the Whip Rays, my favorite team of all time, the Whip Rays, rounds out your top 3. This was an 8-team invitational hosted by Little Squid League. Group stage just for seeding, which fed into a double elimination bracket for just those 8 teams, guaranteeing at least 5 matches for every team that signed up, which is good. If you're going to do an invitational, I'm not big on invitationals that are immediately double elimination, because sometimes you're just going to invite a team and you're going to do this promotion and you're going to hype them up, and then they're gone in about an hour because it's a double elimination bracket. No, let them play. Get some more clips out there. Get some more footage of these teams going up against each other. 5 matches guaranteed. When you have 8 teams, you're at a flexibility to be able to do stuff like that. Insecure Connection winning this time around, I believe that earns them a ban from normal Little Squid Leagues going forward. CCA Week 5 recap here. In Division 1, Illinois State University, the Red Embers, played they played 3 schools, it looks like. They played Central Florida, California State University Long Beach, and Cal Poly Pomona, and beat them 4-0, 4-1, and 4-0 respectively. Okay, they played 3 matches back-to-back on stream. Illinois State just did a whole season in one day and only dropped 1 game. Yikes. Division 2, Cal State University Fullerton got a 4-3 win over, oh no, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, the Grisco Workers Union. Division 3, the University of Georgia, the Bulldogs got a 4-2 win over South Florida, the Bulls, minus the Dogs. Division 4, George Mason University, the Patriots, got a 4-0 win over Northern Northern Arizona University. George Mason University made the Final Four, I believe, in like 2005, like 2004, 2005 of men's basketball. Haven't heard of that university since, but that's one random fact that I remember about that school. Division 5, California State University, Dominguez Hills, got a 4-2 win over Savannah College Art and Design. In Division 6, University of California, San Diego, got a 4-0 over Kutztown University of Pennsylvania. That is not a real thing. I'm assuming that is the end of the regular season. If you want to follow along with more news about the CCA, episode 16 of the podcast, pronounced the podcast, will be airing on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the CCA Switch account. I believe you can also catch that in the server as well. That they run their things out of their Discord server. Join their Discord server. I don't have any NFL news or anything like that as I'm stalling, waiting for the time to roll out because I forgot to do the time thing correctly. Oops. That was your weekly recap. Sponsored by Gridlock. If you were a big fan of Metro Inc.'s Big Dapple, well, boy howdy, do we got news for you. July 13th and 14th of this calendar year, Gridlock is going to be hosting a Splatoon LAN event in New York. And why can't this be huge? Why can't this be as big as Low Tide City and Riptide? I'm like genuinely asking, why couldn't it be? It's got enough of a following now. It's been around long enough to where it's not just some one-off event. Like, this is a consistent event that Metro Inc. is putting on here. I'm assuming like there would be a cap of some sort. Like, I don't know what venue they're using. This isn't just like, we're going to mooch off of Smash Brothers like LTC and Riptide are. But if you're paying attention to the future of what competitive Splatoon at a LAN could be, at some point, we're going to have to find a way to get out of underneath the shadow of Big Brother and see if there's a way that you can start doing some Splatoon stuff on our own. It's extremely difficult because Splatoon is crazy expensive to pull off in a LAN setting. But Gridlock, July 13th and the 14th, make sure you check that out if you are in the area, and don't be afraid to fly into that area to participate in it as well. The official sponsor of today's segment of the weekly recap. Highlighted stuff. The other team streamed their point of view too. I shared their YouTube upload. Falco talking about the clip from earlier. Red Embers played 3 weeks in 1 week. Yeah, they did. Oh, I forgot to move the arrow down. The two people who watch the YouTube just for the weekly recap are going to be so confused. They didn't do the weekly recap. I scrolled past to where the arrow was. They skipped right over it. It's been 224 days. That's how long ago today it was when Jackpot defeated Crush Soda to become the champions of North America for the first time ever in Jackpot's history. And for the first time in a whole heck of a lot of years, the NA champ didn't have the name FT Win or Starburst in their title. 7 months later, 5 other regions had their finals. Multiple death threats were made against Nintendo staff, which, according to some reports I saw last week, that I think they arrested the person that made the threats. I don't quote me on that, but I feel like there has been some conclusion to that. Several delays and reschedules, and finally, finally, after 7 months, competitive Splatoon arrives in Japan for the entire world to see. It was worth the wait, too. Players got a once-in-a-lifetime experience visiting Japan, which would be something to do. I would love to do some point someday. Not Splatoon related, just in general. No crowd was able to spectate the event live. I'm assuming that had something to do with the threats previously, which sucks, but doesn't diminish the fact that it was still an overall cool experience for those that went there and for those of us that were watching back home on this side of the pond. The visuals for viewing this from the Twitch channel, from the stay at home and watch this on stream audience, it was pretty cool. I love the face cams that they had there. I like the fact that you could see all 8 players constantly during the course of the game. It was cool to like see whenever somebody dies, like their reaction, or somebody getting excited over a play, or when you can visibly see when it sinks into some player that the game is out of hand and they're not going to be able to win it, or when you make a huge comeback. Like just seeing the players' emotions over the course of the 5 minutes instead of just like here's the one shot of this one player rotating around. No, like you see all 8 players. That's a pretty cool thing. I wasn't a big fan of the fact that they had so many point of views going on at the same time. So it showed like the overhead view, which from the spectator view, but it kept flipping back and forth between that and the actual player's perspective, not from like the spec cam's perspective, but like literally like the capture card feed coming out from that player's switch. It would switch to that, which was like fine, I guess. And I think it was cool that they had like capturing every single player's switch information. And I don't know, I saw some reports somewhere that you could watch like a stream of just one player's perspective if you wanted to the entire time. I didn't see links to that, and I just saw somebody reference it just for the Japan side, so I don't know if that was an actual thing or not. But as far as like the us viewing the stream with that perspective, I didn't like that at all, because they kept doing the slide transition. So you'd be watching the game and then it would slide like it's showing you a highlight or something. But no, it's just the same game from a different player's perspective. I would have just liked it if they just do what we normally do, just use the spec cam, and the spec cam itself naturally transition. It bounces from player to player instead of cutting to player. Like, I didn't like that at all. It felt like I was watching a highlight slideshow of the match instead of the actual match itself. So step forwards in some directions, step backwards in others. Just you got spec cam and it works great. I mean, I guess the problem they were trying to mitigate there is the fact that when you watch something from spec cam, it's not 100% accurate to what is actually going on in the game. Like, the spec cam tries to blend things around to make the movements more natural instead of the jerking motion that is going on with a lot of those players. Maybe that's what they were trying to get rid of, but spec cam, I would have just liked it if they just used normal spec cam. I don't think this is old man pointing at clouds kind of thing. I just think it's just a lot more natural how they would do something like that. But still, seeing the faces of all the players was pretty cool. But how did all those players get there, though? It's a bit convoluted. It's a bit made up how this world championship was all put together, right? And this was the first world championship Nintendo's hosted, I believe, since 2018. Was it 2018 when GG Boys and FT Win were battling it out? It was either then or 2019. I think it was 2018 when they did that. There was going to be another one in Japan before the pandemic, but that got canceled due to a typhoon hitting Japan around that time and never got rescheduled. FT Win was going to represent North America in that one and never actually happened. But this time around, things were completely different. How it was found out what teams were going to be what teams were going to be representing what region, and which countries were even going to be allowed to audition, I guess, to find a way to play into this finals here. even though there hasn't been a world championship in the past several years, there have still been consistent Nintendo tournaments throughout the years. There's been several every single year since then. Of course, the grand prize hilariously always being a copy of ARMS, a pat on the back, and a backpack full of channel points for your so you could buy even more digital copies of ARMS, I guess. That was really the only prize. And it wasn't until recently where if you want a Nintendo tournament, now we're going to fly you out to PAX. And you're going to compete in that and be the true North American champion, which that was cool. And that was enjoyable to watch. But it wasn't until this very last season, or the most recent Nintendo tournament, when they finally decided, if you win PAX, we're going to take it a step further, and you're going to represent your entire continent, minus everything south of Mexico, which is still part of North America, okay, in the World Championships. They just randomly decided that. Like all those other Nintendo events that were exactly the same format, give or take something here or there, those didn't mean as much as this one. We decided this one is going to mean a whole heck of a lot more. And it just so happens that's the time where Jackpot is playing at their best. That was for North America, though. For Europe, it was country versus country that was going to go on and represent Europe there. It was going to be every country did their own little tournament to figure out which one of their they get the best team out of their country, and then a finals over the course of 2 days. That was a really cool broadcast to watch there, a step up over the Nintendo ones in North America, in my opinion, because they did a lot more of that face cam stuff. It wasn't like all 8 players, but it was like rotating across them over the course of the broadcast, over the course of the match. So that one was cool, even though the controller issues of Alliance Rogue was facing, the controversy surrounding that. But it wasn't like we took, well, let's get all the Canadians and all the Mexicans and all the USAers and let's have them make their own teams within their countries. No, like you could make like FT Win can grab some players from Canada and make like a Canadian American sandwich and play with each other. Europe, I don't think you were allowed to do that. I think you had to play with everyone in your own country and then just battle it out. And it's not that Kaiser's representing Germany. No, they're representing all of Europe. Whereas on the flip side, South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan don't have to battle it out between each other to determine which one of them is going to represent Asia or like the Pacific coast. No, their own country gets to go and to be represented, which makes no sense. And I saw that the Japan tournament was all turf war, whereas like, okay, count our blessings. It could be a lot worse. It could just be, our turf war ladder, which leads into a completely made up seeding for a single elimination bracket. Jackpot and FT Win could play each other round 1 if the ladder works out into the favor of that kind of scenario. Like none of this makes any sense, and it's not consistent across the board. It's like each branch of Nintendo just makes up their own rules as to who's going to be representing what and whatnot. Like Jackpot's representing North America, but all of their players are from the United States. Kaiser's representing the entire continent of Europe, but really it's just Germany, and you can't say the same. I don't know about Australia. I don't know if Australia's team was like officially Oceania as a whole, or if it was just the country of Australia that was participating in that. But otherwise, it's not. It's just like your regions and your countries and all this is made up. Okay, cool. The begs the question though, isn't there like a whole chunk of the world that you're missing? Like if you're going to have a world championships full of areas that have active players that play the game in competitive Splatoon, isn't there a section that should get a shot to at least compete in that? there is a portion of the world that exists below Mexico, right? Like a whole nother continent. Why does South America continuously get a nothing burger in anything competitive Splatoon related by Nintendo? I don't understand that. And I'm sure there's some logical reason, right? Like some just very brief research I was doing on Google suggested there used to be like a Nintendo of Brazil at least, but they don't anymore because of some sort of just unfavorable business laws or practices or something like that. Like I didn't quite understand, and I'm sure there is some sort of reason Nintendo won't touch South America, even though there is a very active player base of Splatoon players in that region, in that continent. But are you really? And I'm not sitting here saying that like, oh, South America is going to make podium in this. But as I'm watching some of those teams play through, South America can produce a team that can do more than just compete against Australia, Taiwan, and South Korea. They could beat all three of them, and they don't get a shot to do it. And it just seems kind of ridiculous. And I'm not the only person to point this out. And I've been pointing this out for a long time. And again, I bet you there is some sort of like business specific reason as to why South America is this constantly not even glanced at by Nintendo and these things. But come on. Like, this isn't a world championship until Jackpot gets the play from South America. I refuse to acknowledge it. Getting off my soapbox there. It was still cool to see a bunch of other countries we're not typically used to seeing compete in this event, however. I got to give some shout outs to South Korea. It was cool to see South Korea play in this event. Yes, their comp was a little unconventional. When I looked at their comp the first time, I was like, oh, that looks like a low ink comp. One of their players I saw tweeted out something on Twitter after their set was done, basically like, hey, yeah, look, we know what the meta is. The thing is that the 4 players we have just all main these specific weapons, so we're just, instead of just forcing like, hey, we need to use pencil and we need to use shot, well, we main dapples and tetras and machine and tent, so that's just what we're gonna do. Respect to that, and quite honestly, I don't think there were ever any doubt that they could take a game away from Kaiser or anything like that, but it wasn't like they were looking bad in that at all. They looked pretty solid. I would like to see them against some actual other teams, just like that was a fair comparison. But just to give some more perspective, because I did see that, they did say like, hey, we know this doesn't really make sense, but this is what we main, so we're just going to go down swinging instead of just forcing somebody to use meta weapons that they might not know how to use or don't even want to use. So mad props to South Korea for that. Taiwan looked like a weekly contender. As in, like, if you put Taiwan and just place them in Paddling Pool or Triton Cup or Squid Junction or Proving Grounds, they would be a contender to win some of those tournaments. Like how they were hanging with Greasy Goblins, and very easily could have won that set against them. I think they ultimately lost 3-1, but they were in every single one of those games. And Greasy Goblins is a team that if they're either going to win or they're going to make podium if they were to sign up for those kind of weeklies as well. I know like Taiwan, like obviously timing lies, it'd be very difficult to play in the Western weeklies, but just seeing them stack up against Greasy Goblins made me think if they did play in one of our weeklies, they would be a legit contender. So Taiwan looked pretty solid as a team. They did double wave breaker at one point. I've been making fun of why would anyone ban multiple specials? Because who cares if somebody's using double wave breaker? Taiwan used double wave breaker. They used Vanilla E-Leader and Range Blaster in a Clam Blitz shipyard match. Why are they playing there of all places? They ended up losing that one, but it just kind of drives home the point of like, why would you ban duplicate specials, the unintended consequences of it? You're telling poor Taiwan they can't use E-Leader and Range Blaster? Come on now. It's not that deep. But Taiwan looked pretty awesome. Australia got their first ever set win at a world championship. Finished in the top 4. They had to play Japan in the second round. Ultimately losing to them in a 3-0. It didn't really matter. I don't think it mattered who the Greasy Goblins were going to play of the top 3 teams. It was very clear. You had your 3 teams at the top and then a gap and then the 3 teams below that of the 6 that were there. And, so be it. This isn't a top 6 teams on planet Earth. This is the top 6 teams out of their own specific region that we hand selected. What has no rhyme or reason as to why we selected it from those different things. So for this format, I feel like it was fine. I think the Greasy Goblins were the 4th best team there, and it showed. Again, that Taiwan team that they played was no slouch. That was a well-earned win for them, but it was an entertaining set to watch, even if you're an ignorant American who isn't familiar with the Far East side of the planet that we live on here. The real winners from the Nintendo World Championships were the folks who live on the East Coast of the United States of America. Because if you watch this event live, you watch the event starting at 1 a.m. with a projected starting time of grand finals at 4:20 in the morning. I have been awake several times at 4 o'clock in the morning since PJ was born, and I have never been happy or excited to be up at that time. It's the exact opposite. There's nothing good that happens at 4:20 in the morning. I don't care if it is the grand finals of the first ever world championships in a long time. That sucks. That's honestly, for the West Coast, though, this is kind of a good time slot. Like the tournament started at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, so you can stay up. You got Sunday to go through, unless you go to church or whatever. But this was a good time for the West Coast, and with grand finals starting at 1 in the morning. I've watched several Smash Majors where grand finals started at 1 o'clock at my viewing time, so it worked out perfectly for the West Coast. But yeah, it was tough. So my mindset was, I'm just going to watch one match at 1 a.m. Like, I'm going to be up at 1 a.m. I'll watch one match just to get a feel for what it is. I'm going to hit pause, go to bed. And then when I wake up the next day, I'll just hit play and the stream will have just caught up and I can just like fast forward past the parts I don't want to watch. So I watched the first set, got a sense for it. I was like, oh, South Korea is running that? Okay, interesting. And then I was going to phone it in. Unfortunately, PJ had some other plans. So PJ is going through a little skill learning portion of his life. So when he's just kind of just chilling, doing his thing, he sleeps perfectly. Like he'll be down for like 11 hours nonstop and won't wake up. And it's just like, oh man, this parenting thing is easy. Like all the crap we went through for the first 6 months, that was hell on earth. But now that he's actually sleeping through the night, like this is the easiest thing in the world. I don't know why everyone doesn't have kids. But when your child goes through periods where they're learning a lot of things all at once, it really messes with their sleep schedule. So PJ has kind of reverted back to, I'm going to sleep for 2 hours and then I'm going to start crying, and off and on. So it's kind of just like, okay, reverting. But it's still cool. He's starting to stand up. Like he'll climb up things with his hands and stand up and just kind of wobble around a little bit, fall down on his butt and get back up again. He's starting to eat actual foods, like actual human consumable foods, not like this, we just found this and we put it in a blender and we're going to sell it to you as baby food stuff. No, like he's eating actual foods now. He's starting to grow hair. It's really bizarre, me seeing that specifically, but it does cause a lot of sleep issues. So as I'm going to be tuning off at 1 in the morning or around like 2 o'clock and just stop, he starts crying immediately. So it's like, all right, well, I'll just go hang out with him again. So I just kind of pick him up and I'm just going to rock him back to sleep. And what the hell? I'll just continue to watch this tournament a little bit longer. I'm gonna be up anyways, so it was pretty cool to watch some more sets with a half awake baby in your arms as you're trying to rock him to sleep. But I was able to watch the next two sets, the Taiwan versus Australia set, and then what I got to see around 2:30 in the morning was an absolute banger of a set in Jackpot versus Kaiser. Amazing set. Best of 5 that started off with Jackpot going down 0-2. And I didn't catch this live the first time, but I did go back and watch it. Every time there was a loss, or every time that Kaiser got a win, they were doing some chirping at Jackpot's expense. I believe it was Isaac, I believe that's how that's pronounced, was the main player that was on the edge of the table closest to Jackpot. And every time they win, they would just immediately turn. And you could see, they didn't do like a wide shot of this, but you saw it from that player's own face cam. Turn and was chirping at Jackpot for 2 games in a row. No problem with that. I don't know what was said. Well, I would care if it was something crazy. I don't think it was anything like crazy or over the line. But you know my stance on trash talking. No issue with it whatsoever. Especially when Jackpot is a team that has been pretty much inviting trash talk. Not the so much you guys suck, you guys are washed kind of thing. But Jackpot will poke back at you as well, if not initiate it the first time. And Kaiser took the approach of, well, we're going to initiate it. We're going to poke the bear. And why not? We're up 2-0 against the arguably the best, if not one of the best teams in the West or of all the world at this point. But you go, do you really want to be poking that bear, though? Because after going down 2-0, Jackpot starts to come back. And after each one of their wins, you see their players start to stand up. And you see them start to taunt back at Kaiser a little bit. And I saw the player that was doing the taunting for Kaiser was just like not giving them the light of day. Just like, yep, nope, we just got to win one more. Just one more. Oh, but Jackpot was giving it back down to them. And I love the fact that Nintendo just let it happen. You didn't see anybody on there be like, no, we don't want our audience to think that, we don't want moms watching this thinking that like, oh, this is an esport, that there are players that are screaming at each other over a video game. We don't want that. No, like they were very open to that happening and were making sure to capture all of it. When Madness was standing up after game 4, it was just like right in Kaiser's face. They put 3 cameras on them. They got 3 cameras up on stage and made sure they captured every single angle of it. Like they wanted you to actually see that. And I thought that was really cool. I was kind of surprised, just Nintendo's reputation in general, that they might shy away from that. No, they invited it and they wanted it captured at as many different angles as they could get. That I thought was pretty cool. Game 5 though, man, Turf War. Oh, now the map list for this set in general wasn't horrible. There were some really god-awful maps that were sprinkled throughout there. Game 1 was Splat Zone's Barnacle and Dime, but the rest of the set was fine. Like Splat Zone's Museum is great. Tower Control Art Academy, obviously great. Clan Blitz at Umami isn't horrible, and you still see that played somewhat in some other tournaments. So this wasn't the worst map pool that they could have come up with. But game 5, it coming down to Tower Control at Humpback Pump Track is a anticlimactic way to end things. It doesn't discredit the set overall for it to end like that, but it's not how you or we from the grassroots community want to see a set end. But I will say this. Damn, was it interesting. And was it entertaining? Because it incredibly was. Could you imagine this whole set with so much stuff on the line coming down to a 3-minute turf war game where at the end of the game, you might not even know who wins. You might have to just sit there. It would have been better if the match was closer at the end, which it wasn't, because Jackpot dominated the final 30 seconds. And I wasn't even looking at the screen. I was just looking up at the top at the weapons just to see which side is like losing more players. And it was Kaiser that was dropping like flies at the absolute worst time. And when they show you the screen, it was no doubt Jackpot won because it was so yellow. But could you imagine if that was closer and then you just get like this like half yellow, half purple map that they're showing you there, and all 8 players looking at their screen through the face cam and not a single one of them know if they've won the set or not until little Judd just like gives out the award? That would be cool. That would be really cool. And that was exciting to watch. Is it still a dumb way to end out a round like that? Yes. Yes, it was. Does Turf War still come down to the last 30 to 15 seconds? Yes. I don't care who you are, how high your X rank score is, how many Twitter followers you have. That is an actual fact. Turf War comes down to the last 30 to 15 seconds. Don't try to argue with me that all the other modes have the same thing. Technically, yes, but not even close. There are no checkpoints. There's no KO feature in Turf War. It just comes down to who's going to roll up their sleeves in the last 30 seconds and who's going to land punches. Jackpot landed all the punches, and it was exciting to see. And don't you dare try to invalidate this win by Jackpot by saying Game 5 Turf War means that it doesn't mean anything, that this set isn't validated because of that. Okay? Would you say the same thing if Kaiser won? If you had that same narrative because Jackpot won, but then it switched and Kaiser won, would you be saying, well, Kaiser's win doesn't work because they had to play on Turf War? Or would you be praising Kaiser for beating Jackpot? I wonder. I genuinely wonder, because both teams played under the same stupid rule set, right? It was fair for both teams. So you can't just say because they won that it's invalidating. No, the other team could have won under the same exact stupid rule set themselves. Both teams played under it. Just something to throw out there. Your logic doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Xeris put on an absolute show. Was just slicing Jackpot to pieces. It seemed like every time they put Xeris on screen, somebody was getting decapitated with that sword. It was incredible. But obviously, just too much to overcome. Jackpot as a team was just a little bit too strong. Game 4, Splat Zones at the Museum. Go back and watch that game. There are so many times where the zone is just stalled out for an extreme long amount of time, even though Kaiser has 3 players up and Jackpot only has 2. In one instance, Jackpot only has 1 player up and Kaiser has 4. And they still can't flip the zone back into their favor. In fact, Jackpot takes the lead in that scenario. Why? .Q on pencil on that map was a huge problem that Kaiser could not come up with an answer with. I went back and watched that game. .Q died once in that entire game. They died in the first minutes while Kaiser was making their huge run. And I think they were trying to flank, actually. But for the rest 4 minutes of the game, .Q never died. Not once. And they tried to. You saw Xeris zip casting up there. You saw them arcing some Zuka shots in her direction. Like, they were doing their best to knock out that pencil. But they never did. And you just saw over and over again on the plat, 5 shots. Boom, 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 boom. Completely covering the entire zone. And they couldn't kill her. Game over at that point. Say what you want about Pencil, but at the end of the day, they couldn't find a way to even get close to killing .Q, and she made them pay for it and just provided a beacon. I would assume in that game 4 that the splat advantage was heavily in the favor of Kaiser, and that the amount of times that Jackpot players were dying was well into the double digits, aside from .Q. But because that pencil stayed alive and just kept painting the zone over and over and over again, they couldn't hold on to it long enough to get the win. Man. So at that point, if you're like me and you saw that set, It was a great set. Don't say it's the best set of all time. That is the way that you say you don't watch any competitive Splatoon. It wasn't the best set of all time. It was a fantastic set. I'll say this: it's the best set I've ever seen at 2:30 in the morning, bar none. It might also, by that definition, be the worst set of competitive Splatoon I've ever seen at 2:30 in the morning. But if you're like me, that's the point where you finally checked out. You're like, I don't really want to see Japan wallop the Greasy Goblins, and I'm not going to wait another hour for a grand final set. Like, I feel like most people on the East Coast dipped out after the Jackpot Kaiser set and then came back and woke up the next morning, either checked Twitter or went back and watched the rest of the set before checking Twitter, which is what I did. But if you stayed all the way through, you saw that Jackpot was able to do it, to get it done. They beat Japan in 5 games in a best of 7, beating them 4-1, and they are your world champions. Congratulations to them. But that Jackpot Kaiser set, that was the real world championship. I think if Kaiser wins that set, I feel like they probably beat Japan as well. I mean, it's who knows? It's not. It's it's a fictional set. You could say anything you want, but just by judging how teams were playing that day, I feel like EU brings home the whole championship at that point. But Jackpot got it done in Turf War. They've been practicing it. It paid off right there. So what does this do for Jackpot's legacy? We'll talk about that. But before we get there, can we just acknowledge the accomplishment that they were able to pull off? They had to wait 7 months, deal with a resurging FT Win team, the meta being as stale as like those saltine crackers that are still in your cabinet that you forgot are up there, having to deal with burnouts, having to deal with Starburst emerging from the hyperbolic time chamber to be able to knock them off in a Sindao tournament. Like, it wasn't just 7 months of them dominating the scene. It was 7 months of new monsters starting to rise to challenge and beat them while dealing with one of the most stagnant metas we've had in Splatoon 3 and in Splatoon in general for a long time. Since they were the NA champions, announced back in September, every single time they lose, either a set or a game, it doesn't have to be something that knocks them out of a tournament. You can beat them in the winner side of the bracket. It has always been met with something on Twitter, which comes with the territory. And that could just be something like, hey, we're excited that we took a game off of Jackpot because they're really good. But more often than not, it's been met with a Jackpot sucks because we beat them, which kind of is a diss at you as well, saying that you suck because you could beat Jackpot by some weird definition of your own doing, but so be it. But that is something they've had to deal with. That kind of pressure's been put on them for every single match that they play in. And this isn't a, oh, woe is Jackpot kind of thing. They got to play at 2 LAN events. They got to go to PAX West, I believe, and got to experience all of that. They got to go to Japan and experience that country. They get to have these fantastic moments where they get to have like these awesome life experiences that those alone are going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. That is cool. That is something they got out of all of this. So it's not like they're just, these poor souls getting beat up on Twitter by meanies. Like there's some positive to this stuff, but it's obvious from the tweets they've been putting out for the last several months that this is a very stressful position to be in. Being at the top of the mountain is extremely stressful and extremely unfun in several ways. And it's obvious that it was starting to get to them. As I was watching the set against Kaiser, where they were down 2-0-2, I was like, I don't think they're coming back from this. I think they might get swept. I feel like they're getting like it just got into their heads, or Kaiser was just warmed up and they hadn't caught up or whatever. I didn't think they were going to come back from that, because I've commentated Sindao season finals 1 and 2. Like, I saw those 2 sets live. Starburst got the better of them And then FT Win got the better of them. In both sets where they came in and it felt like they were going to find a way to win it, they didn't against those teams. And now they're down 0-2 to Kaiser. And I didn't think they were going to come back. And again, I feel like Kaiser wins. If Kaiser wins that Turf War game, or they find a way to knock out .Q more and they win that game 4 straight up, they're going to be going on to win the championship. What would the narrative be if Kaiser won the championship? Would we be talking about the main headline? Would it be that Kaiser is the world championships, the world champions? That would not be the main headline. The main headline is that Jackpot failed to win the world championships. And that's, whether that's fair or not, that is reality. That is everything at the top of any kind of sport is seen as. Look yesterday, Scotty, I don't even know the name. Scotty Scheffler is the player who won the Masters yesterday. What was the top thing that ESPN was going with the Masters, though? It wasn't the player that won it. It was talking about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods playing on Sunday. Tiger Woods having the worst overall score he's ever had in the Masters tournament ever. Like, Tiger is the headline, even though he was nowhere close to winning, because Tiger's the better story. And that would be what Jackpot losing would be. Fair or not, that would be the main headline story that they would roll with there. Tiger Woods being the much bigger brand than everybody else. Jackpot, of everybody that was there, Jackpot's brand being way bigger than everybody else, especially Kaiser in that situation. That is the pressure that Jackpot has to deal with every single time they play a match. And they still, with that much weight of the world on their shoulders, they still won the world championships. That is impressive. That is insanely impressive. So before you talk about what does this mean for their legacy, factor all of that in to these things. Rarely does something live up to a hype, or a team live up to a hype, especially when they got all of that pressure on them. Jackpot was able to accomplish that, and that is amazing. But let's put this win into perspective here. Is Jackpot the best team ever now that they are the world champions? No. And this might sound weird considering how long of a wait this was, but their resume as a whole is nowhere as big as what FT Win or Starburst's resume as a whole is right now. And the problem is FT Win and Starburst are still adding to their resume. They're back. They got new rosters, and they're continuing to win championships. Sindow finals, other tournaments, they are the legit contenders for best team of all time. And Jackpot on track for that is still got a long, long way to go if they want to be able to accomplish that. And keep in mind, while Jackpot can say they are world champions, FT Win and Starburst never had many opportunities to get that same kind of title flung in their direction. FT Win got one opportunity to play in a world championship. They made it to grand finals, beating an Alliance Rogue team 3-2 in what I think might be the greatest Splatoon set of all time. Maybe the greatest individual Splatoon game. That Splat Zone's Mako Mart game was insane. I remember that. But they played the GG Boys in grand finals, and they were up 2-0. And then Nintendo's preset map list, for some reason, put Splat Zones back to back. They played 2 straight games against Japan, which was unbeatable at Splat Zones at the time. Back to back, momentum killer. FT Win doesn't end up winning world championships. It goes to the GG Boys. Not saying that if the map list was different that FT Win would have won it. I'm just saying that was the only shot FT Win got. From there on out, if they won a tournament, a Nintendo tournament, yay, you're the champions of North America. Here's a copy of ARMS. See ya. See you in a couple more months. We'll do it again then. That's all Starburst got either. And remember when Starburst played in their first PAX event and they played Sayonara? That was in the middle of their undefeated streak. They played Sayonara in that grand finals, and they 4-0'd them. And it wasn't just like a close 4-0. That was like oh my gosh, they need to stop after game 3 because this is getting embarrassing kind of a 4-0. Like, Starburst was untouchable and they never got an opportunity to play in the World Championship. That was back in Splatoon 2 as well. The end of Splatoon 2, it was F2Win and Starburst wrestling against each other, and Starburst was finally getting the better end of them. But their prize, again, wasn't even a trip to the World Championships because that wasn't even a thing. So when we're talking about world champions, yes, FT-Win cannot say they're world championships. Starburst can't either. Jackpot can, but Jackpot, in the one time they won it, it just so happens the RNG works out that they get to play in a world championship. FT-Win won like 50 of them. They only got one. Starburst won several of them. They got 0 opportunities. You got to be able to point that out because that is a fair fact to bring up, in my opinion. But credit, again, the Jackpot. That makes the Jackpot win even more impressive, right? Because they got a rare opportunity and they didn't fumble it away. They got a rare opportunity, down 2-0 to Europe, still found a way to come back and capitalize on the moment because they may never get another opportunity like that again. So that makes it impressive, but you got to put that into perspective. Does this win make Jackpot the number 1 team in the West right now? No, I don't. I don't think there is a top team in the West right now. And I don't think that's a cop-out. I think that's the correct answer. I don't think there is a top team in the West right now. I think we have 3 gods in FT-Win, Jackpot, and Starburst. And if I were to rank those 3 teams, that would be the order I would rank them in right now. But it's like 1A, 1B, 1C. But it is those 3 teams and then everybody else. Like maybe a mile and then everybody else, which is great. It's great to have that kind of parity, but you can't take this one win against Kaiser. And I don't know how strong that team from Japan was. I'm just not that well versed in Japan. Now South Korea did beat them in a turf war game, so there is something to say about that. South Korea beat Jackpot in a turf war game, but what Jackpot accomplished in this one event, to me, it doesn't say like, oh well, they beat Kaiser, they got to be above FT-Win. I don't know if that's enough, but that doesn't really matter at this point, right? Because they are the reigning Nintendo champs, which is something that you can't really discredit. But man, it would be so cool if it was cool that they did the region things, right? It was cool that they had South Korea and Taiwan and then like all of Europe, but really Germany representing all this stuff here. It was cool to see that. But if this was a real world championship, wouldn't they just get the top 8 teams from across the world and just let them battle it out? Like, wouldn't they just get like Kaiser and Alliance Rogue / Guru, whatever they're doing nowadays, Starburst, FT-Win, and Jackpot, and then mix in some of the strong teams from Japan or like a strong team from anywhere else in the world? Let's just get the 8 best teams on planet Earth, regardless of where they're from, bring them to one location, like a Smash Summit style, do a 2-day double elimination, just let all those teams put boxing gloves on and beat the snot out of each other on stream for 2 straight days. That would be awesome, and that would be a real quality world championship. And if South Korea can still get in with double dualies in that kind of format, then even more hats off to them for that. But I would love to see like an actual 8 teams on planet Earth playing on land in one location. That would be something really impressive if somebody were to pull that out. But this is something we're never really going to see. Unless like the grassroots community was able to pull something off like this, but that would still be crazy to do. Here's what this win means for Jackpot, though. They won the last grassroots Splat World Championships. Do you guys remember that? I used to talk about those when they happened. The old Splat World Championships that was hosted by Japan, and they would either just decide teams were going to be playing it, or they did actual qualifiers for it, where Japan won all of them and North America would just get constantly stomped on them. Jackpot won the most recent one. Might have won the last one. If you've noticed, there hasn't been a grassroots Splat World Championship since community guidelines came out. I'll just leave it at that. But Jackpot, technically, on that side of things, is the reigning world champion. As far as Nintendo Splat World Championship is concerned, well, Jackpot's won that as well. They are the reigning world championships of the Nintendo Splat World Championships. By every metric that we have to determine who the world champion is on planet Earth, and by extension, all of the known universe, Jackpot is the best team in that kind of metric. You have to refer to them for the rest of their mortal lives as world champions, because that is what they are. They are world champions. There's not many people that can say that about Splatoon specifically. There should be some sort of like rite of passage. You know, if you win the Masters, you get a green jacket. That's the only way to get that kind of that special jacket. There should be something for Jackpot. Like if they go to a Riptide or a LTC, go to the Grassroots Lands, Jackpot. Come on, let us celebrate you. We want to do that. Whenever they walk into a room, they should have somebody who is required to go into that room ahead of them and announce to the room, the champs are here, and allow them to walk in with that kind of greeting every single time. If they go to a LAN and they're playing on the stage for grand finals, and Stu the announcer is doing the announcing the teams that are going to be playing and introducing Jackpot, has to say the reigning champions of the world, Jackpot. That should be something they have to do every single time. And that is not a title that goes away, right? Like Mike Tyson is not known as the former world champion. Everyone calls him the champ. He's the champion of the world. Now, there is reigning world champion and just world champion. Nobody's going to be calling Jackpot former. They are world champions for the rest of their life. And fair or not, they're the only ones, aside from that one time at the beginning of Splatoon 2, that I think Power won it. Jackpot can say that. And that is just, now, that just opens up the door for more jackasses to go after them whenever they beat them. Oh, we beat the world champions. They're washed. They're cooked. There's a reason why you get excited when you beat Jackpot, though. And there's a reason why nobody gets excited when they beat you. Like, there's a reason why nobody calls you washed when they beat you. It's because you're not relevant. You're not interesting. You're not important. Jackpot is. Jackpot draws a lot of jealousy from people in the Splatoon community for one reason, and now they got a much better reason on top of it. It's because they have something that you will probably never in your life have. A crown. And it can never be taken from them. I think that's going to do it. There were a couple of highlighted things. But it was way back. Nexalation. At most of the qualifiers, game one of the box set was a best of 3 of Turf War. I don't know why they didn't do that for Worlds. I didn't watch Saturday, the group stage for seeding. Like, I didn't care what the seeding was going to be, and I didn't care to watch Turf War, so I didn't watch day one. But yeah, I'm assuming you're referring to the Japan thing. I didn't know what the Japan qualifier was. That's just what I heard. Which is a great thing to say here on the Popcast. And I think that's it. You do have a crown from Burger King. Fair enough. That's going to do it from today's episode of the Popcast. We're going to do another episode on Friday with the Low Ink recap. If the TO Guild survey's out by then, we'll go through the TO Guild survey. But other than that, we're just going to preview Low Ink. Sign up for Low Ink. Make sure you do that. And who are we going to raid that we haven't raided? Oh, let's go to Stormy. So, between now and then, make sure you get vaccinated, stay safe, wear a mask when applicable. Don't do anything dumb between now and then. Sign up for Low Ink, or hit up Brush if you want to commentate Low Ink. Or yell at me to make the map list. I guess I should go do that today. Oops.